Hello and good evening, afternoon, morning, you know the drill, whatever it is for you, however that applies to you, good blank. Anyways, my name is Brady. Welcome or welcome back to the channel. If you've been here before, it's nice to see you. If you've not been here before, well, I hope you liked the video and I hope you stay a while. Take your coat off, make yourself comfortable. Anyway, I've got a really fun scene that we kind of put together on a whim in about 24 hours. Planning it, shooting it, and everything. Kind of this impromptu thing that we did while in Florida with Yoel and our friend Carla. So we've got this scene here. I'm gonna play it out. It's in no particular order, but you've got Yoel kind of gloomy in this grungy bathtub. This is not the final edit as well either, but he's just kind of hanging out in there. Then he's got this photo. He's looking back on some sort of memory. Can't tell you yet what it is, but he's looking back on it. Clearly he's a little bit irked. And then let's see, the next clip that I've got here, him just another cool shot. And this shot I really love, I want to talk about in a second. It just really adds to this like emptiness and isolation. Super cool shot. And then the last one is my absolute favorite. He's sitting there burning this photo. So there is the shot. Super fun, super cool shot. If you are doing stuff with fire, I do not condone it. Be safe, be smart, don't be stupid like us, because I don't want anybody catching on fire or anybody hurt or anything like that. But if you resort to doing something like this, please just be careful. So, you know, all of this was done, like I said, with about 24 hours of planning and shooting and everything, and then I had to leave Florida. So a lot of things were done very run and gun. And I want to talk about the lighting on this shot and kind of what we did to achieve this look. And it's very, very simple. Very low budget, very quick and easy. There's a couple different modifications that we did for each of these shots. But let's go ahead and talk about the wide one because it's probably the most simple. And we lit it with literally an aperture MC. Like that's all that we lit it with. And I wanted to go for this really grungy bathtub scene, this really cool tone grungy bathtub look just to match the mood of what was going on. And I felt that with a large light source, it was very soft, it was very evenly spilt throughout the entire bathroom, and the entire bathroom was white. So the light's gonna bounce everywhere. And I was like, how can we get contrast? It's flat, it just doesn't look good. And I was like, you know what? Give me that MC. Just give me, like, we've got all these lights to work with, give me the MC. And I put it right overhead of Yoel. And then it really started to give a lot of shadow detail in here and some contrast and some texture. So all I lit this scene was just an aperture MC set to 6,000 Kelvin, literally set on a piece of Scotch tape or packaging tape across two soap holders. And that was it. And then everything else was just lights cut out. I want to say the camera was set to 4,500 Kelvin at the white balance, and I was shooting at 12,800 ISO on the FX6. So I had the aperture MC probably at about 100%. I had the base ISO to 12,800, and then I actually used some ND, I want to say, just like a quarter stop or quarter strength ND. So that must have been like 2 stops of ND on this, just because I didn't want to shoot 800 and have to shoot wide open. So instead I stopped the lens down to about 5.6 with the 24-70 Sigma on the FX6. So that's what we're working with camera wise and camera settings wise. And then for this shot, we did switch it up because we were working with a tight and I really wanted some nice shadow across his face. And you know, I was working on a whim and I was like, the MC's too hard. It looks too sourcey, it looks too obvious. So I took a Light Panels Gemini 1x1 soft and I just had that literally right overhead, just out of frame, kind of tucked into the corner. And I had that 1x1 place, just in a place where you can see this little Rembrandt triangle coming across his face, and you can see a lot of this like shadow contrasty area over here because the 1x1 was placed right over here, just out of frame right there. So the only shot that I used that with is this shot right here. And then going back into this one, this again was the MC. And my reasoning for that was these two shots were actually shot on a separate night. We shot them the next evening. And right here, we did have Carla to stand, like put her foot on the light stand because the 1x1 overhead Yoel is heavy. And for safety purposes, I didn't want to have a big light over his head if there was nobody there to hold the stand. So since Carla wasn't there to help us out, I had to resort back to the Aperture MC on this shot, which we'll get to in a second, and this shot as well. And I do like the shadow and the contrast that is added from just the Aperture MC, and I like how it's very, very low budget with just a pocket light. So this shot here of Yoel just kind of sitting in the bathtub, calling whoever he's calling, we didn't even plan for this. I looked in the mirror right as we were about to wrap up and I was like, oh my God, this looks so cool. I just liked how he was tucked in the corner, kind of tucked out of frame, looking out of frame. And he just felt like, it gave off this uncomfortable feeling. And then having the reflection in the mirror and then the reflection of the door and everything else in the bathroom, it just looked really cool. This might be my favorite shot. I don't know what it is about it. But again, we just had this Aperture MC that was right here, just out of frame right there, kind of pointing straight down on Yoel's head. And that's it. That's all it was. And I'm totally happy with the look that it gave. And the reason why I really like this shot is because it wasn't planned, and it was literally just, I looked over and saw it. So when you're shooting and when you're on location on set, don't be so close-minded into the shots that you need to get. Always be looking for something that might be different and be open to making some modifications and changes to your shot list and doing things like this. So this is the fun shot. So how we lit this shot was that same Aperture MC that was just overhead here, and you can see that it's kind of placed in a way that it's at a little bit of an angle because you get this rim on his nose, this nice edge on his hand, still giving us contrast, because if it was very front lit and placed like right here, kind of coming in on him, we would lose a lot of our shadow detail. And we want to keep this low-key grungy look. So by doing that and keeping the MC kind of tucked way up here, you see that the back of this photo is in shadow. Let's kind of advance this a little. Back of the photo is in shadow, back of his hand's in shadow. You get this nice little kiss of light right along his finger, on his nose line, you know, right over here. It just looks very nice. So it keeps this blue, cool shadow tone for when the fire really brightens up. And I mean, it's just super cool the way that it goes from this dark, grungy blue into this warm, fiery awesomeness. Yeah, I don't know, it's super cool. And then I exposed my camera actually I kind of battled a little bit. I wanted to expose for the fire because I didn't want the fire to be completely blown out and super bright, but I was getting the most out of the Aperture MC. The aperture was at 100%. So ideally I would have liked to darken the camera up a little bit more so the fire isn't as bright. But by doing so, I didn't have the brightness out of the Aperture MC to add in a lot of this cool light that we needed to balance that out. Because if I darkened down the camera to the fire, then the entire scene would have been really dark and it just wouldn't have been consistent with the rest of the shots. So I would have probably liked another brighter light if I could have had that Light Panels Gemini overhead this night. Maybe I would have gone with that just to balance that exposure a little bit better. But as far as exposing my camera, I exposed for what I couldn't control, which was the fire. So a super quick rundown of how I lit and how I shot these. And for this overhead shot, I literally held it overhead, the camera overhead, relied on the image stabilizer for the camera and stabilize in post as well. There was some shake and it was heavy, but that's literally all I did. I held the camera straight up over Yoel's head and it hurt. It was heavy. It's also because I'm weak. But so that's all of the in-camera work for this scene, but I wanna move in to the coloring and how I gave it this particular look. But before doing so, I need to tell you guys about Cuts because they are absolutely killing it. This hoodie, this whole sweatsuit, it's Cuts and it's awesome. It's this cool like wash, and then, hold on. This is my favorite thing ever. It's true. There's Sherpa. Look at this. How do I look? Oh my goodness, this is insane. No, I'm not even lying to you. This Sherpa is my favorite thing ever. Cuts just came out with this. They've got a black one that I just got for my dad for Christmas because he wanted this so bad and he was absolutely ecstatic about it. So good Christmas presents, or I guess New Year's presents, or any presents, birthday, whatever it is. I love this thing. And I think they even came out with a pine one, like their evergreen colors. So I'm super excited about it. Super stoked. You can get this or really any of their shirts. You see me wearing Cuts all the time, so I don't need to like rant on about it and beat a dead horse or be a broken record player. But I'm gonna leave all the info down below and check them out because Cuts is fantastic and they're making stuff like, they're coming out with stuff all the time now. So Cuts, you're doing a good job. So use code Brady Bissett for 15% off. I'll put a link down there below just to make it easy for you to get to their website. But that's all I'm gonna say about Cuts. Now I'm gonna talk about color grading. All right, so here we are on this burning picture shot, which personally is my favorite. I have colored this already, so I'm just gonna get rid of this and walk us along. First and foremost, I used a Rec 709 Lut, which for me is the Phantom Luts that I have been absolutely loving. This is the Ice Blue Lut particularly, but all of Joel's ARI conversion Luts are absolutely beautiful. You've seen me talk about them a little bit on the channel before. I'm gonna leave information down below just for ease of travel to go check them out as well. They look beautiful. This particular one is the Ice Blue one just because it's got a little bit more cool tones to it. So first, I always add it in the Lut, and then before that, I have an exposure node that just kind of tweaks the exposure. Then after the Lut, I adjust the exposure as well based off of this Rec 709 profile. And then I go into some primaries, added in a little bit of this cool grunginess to it, did some HSL, added a little bit more warmth and color to the fire. And then the last node is a dehancer node, which just really gives like this grainy, bloomy halation look to it. So that's a rundown. We're gonna go through this together, but I just wanted to talk over pretty much what all of these look like. I think one of them I put a vignette. Yeah, we have just a little vignette in there. But all that to say, I'm gonna run through one just super quick and easy and start from scratch. So right when I get in, I always just add in like 3 nodes. And the first or second node, we're gonna call that the Lut. I'm gonna misspell it. Let's call this the pre-exposure and the post-exposure. Or exposure adjustment, whatever. So we're gonna add in the Phantom Luts. Let's find them. FX6, ARI Alexa, and I like the Ice Blue one. It just adds a little bit more of a cool tone to it. Here, let's see. This is the neutral one. I mean, it's very neutral, it's very beautiful. It's exactly what you would want out of a Rec 709 profile. But with the Ice Blue, I mean, you can see the difference right here. Neutral versus Ice Blue, a little bit more cool tones. So that's that. So immediately I've got that Lut in place, and that's a good hero frame right there. I feel like this frame is a little bit bright, so I'm gonna go into this pre-exposure, bring down a little bit of the offset, keeping in mind I don't wanna crush too many of my tones over here, or of my shadows there. So I'll bring it down to about right there, because I want the focus to be on these highlight peak points there and on the brightness of the fire. I don't need this shadow to be exposed properly. I want that to be dark. So there we go, there's that. And then after post-exposure, after I've had the Lut, I usually tweak the exposure just a little bit as well. I usually bring down the gain just a little to smooth off this roll off, bring up the gamma, usually something like that. And maybe I'll bring down the lift a little bit as well, just to add this contrast. Really nothing extreme at all. I mean, once you add in this Lut, it usually does all of the work for you, which is amazing. And if you don't have the Phantom Luts, which I definitely do recommend them for Sony's and Blackmagic's, they just make everything very easy. And I'm not saying this to try to plug them. Yes, Joel sent them out to me, and yes, they're amazing, but I genuinely think it's an extremely easy tool to have in your tool bench or tool belt, whatever. But if you don't have the Phantom Luts, you can also just use a Rec 709 color space transform. So let's just close that out for a second. And let's add in another node. go in to your effects, which this is built in into DaVinci Resolve. And then you just go in and tell DaVinci what you're working with. So I've got Sony S-Gamut 3 Cine. I've got the S-Log 3. And then I want to go for Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. So really it gives you the same kind of contrast as this Rec 709 would do. And it's getting you to the same place. So if you don't have the Phantom Luts, you can also opt for a color space transform, and you still get really the end goal. So as I was saying, I've got the pre-exposure and the LUT kind of go hand in hand. I usually do the LUT first and then the pre-exposure. Then after I add in the LUT, I just tweak the exposure just a little bit more. And then I've got this primaries, and this is where we're kind of gonna develop a little bit more of this cool look that I wanted. So in the shadows, or let's go into the, let's see. A lot of the times I'll pull it to the extreme and just see, you know, what each does. And I'll pull into this grungy cyan look there. And I might even do that a little bit more into the shadows, just to add in this grungy look. And I'm doing this live with you, so it's gonna be a little bit rushed. And I might pull a little bit of warmth, just so I see what it does to the fire, because that's the highlight. So in the gain, I might bring in a little bit of warm and magenta. Yeah, let's say right there. And then I'll massage a little bit of these lift in the gamma as well. So some cyan in there, because I really like the grungy cyan blues. So just developing that look, I mean, with it off and with it on, it adds a nice grungy feel, exactly kind of what we're going for. So that's what I'll do with the primaries. And then I add one node right after that for HSL, just for the sliders, or the curves rather, because I don't like exactly the color of the fire, or I just want to tweak the way the fire looks a little bit. I don't know where I want to go with it. I think I want to just warm it up a little bit towards magenta, and then I want to go into the hue versus saturation, and I want to add in, obviously that's way too extreme, but like I said, I kind of go to the extreme, see what it does, and then pull back from there. So I want to add in a little bit of warmth or saturation into that fire. So then the HSL, you can just see a little bit of that change that it gives us right in here, and especially the primaries and those, it gives quite the look into the frame. And really that's about it that I do just for tweaks to give it the look. And then, like I've done plenty of times before, giving it grain and some halation and some bloom. I use Dehancer, absolutely love it. And uncheck all of these. And what we're looking for is this grain. And I usually pull it down just a little bit, because sometimes it's, you know, it's a little steep for me. So we've got some grain in there, some halation as well. You can see it really takes to the highlights, and especially subtly in there. And I've got a video that touches a little bit more in depth on this, so I don't want to stay on it too much. And then I'll add some bloom as well, which you can see especially what it does to the fire. It might be a little bit too much. We'll save some of the highlights, pull back the impact of it, and there we go. And that's really all I did to get this look. You know, looking at it now, it's a little bit compared to like what I had before. Yeah, I definitely went for a lot of a lower, bluer look, but that is the process that I did to get this. So now going over to this shot here, for example, I did the same thing. So we'll just copy over the look that I had. I noticed that, and the good thing about keeping it with this format is that when I bring in this particular look to another frame, by having this pre-exposure node in there, that can pretty much set you up for adjusting the exposure for any imperfections or changes that happen in the scene. So I'll always go to that, re-expose my frame, and then right after the HSL, I wanted to add in a vignette. Bam, there we go. And to do that, I just take a little radius thing there, put it kind of right around UL. Well, let's change that softening to 45, invert that, and then I'll go over here into my curves. And by doing that, it really puts a focus on Yoel in this area by vignetting the frame. So super micro changes to that. And then same thing for here. I might take that same vignette, which I've already got, just to add a little bit more focus on Yoel. But that is everything really. You guys know that I'm not a professional colorist. I just color to give myself a particular look for my shot, just kind of like to fully wrap my head around the vision that I had in camera. But it was a super quick grade, and I want to stress this simplicity of things when grading, because I used to always overcomplicate things like crazy, and it spiraled downhill very fast. So whether you have these phantom LUTs that I'm going to link down below, whether you have Dehancer that I'll put down below as well, or you just use the in-program color space transform, keep it simple, because you can really get a great look out of a handful of nodes, and you don't need all these crazy nodes. Yes, you can add them, but you know, find a purpose for it. Don't just add in nodes because you feel like you need to add in nodes. So that is going to wrap up this video. If you have any questions on the final product, we're still kind of putting it together. I don't know what it's gonna look like. We kind of did everything on a whim. But if you have questions on the final product or anything else that sparked a question throughout this video, please leave a comment down below. And yeah, if you like this video, hit the like button, the share button, the subscribe button, whatever it is it takes for you to tell me that you like this video. Please do that, and I will see you next week.